If you want to be appreciated, show appreciation. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change. If you want people to show appreciation, then you be the one that changes that by you making sure that you tell people what you appreciate about them. I had a strange situation with appreciation that changed my view of it for the rest of my life when I was only a freshman in college. I have to admit, as a senior in high school, at Ottumwa High School, I had a dream of running track and field for a guy named Bob Timmons at the University of Kansas. You see, my high school idol was a guy named Jim Ryan. He was the greatest distance runner in American history, and I still believe that he is to this day. But Coach Timmons was his high school coach, and then he had followed Jim to the University of Kansas, and he was still there when I was a senior in high school. I told my parents that if they offered me a track and field scholarship, that that's where I was going to go. So as soon as they did, I headed to Lawrence, Kansas to fulfill one of my lifetime dreams. But this is my freshman year. It's the indoor season, and we are in our indoor facility called Anschutz Pavilion. On that day, we had 6 times a 600, and all that means is we'd run 600 meters and then jog 2 laps. Run 600 meters, jog 2 laps until we were to get them all in. Well, after the third one, a teammate of mine, Kevin and I, we stopped at the water jug that the trainers had put there on the infield so that we could do just that. We got a drink and we were going to wait for our teammates to come back around on the second lap, and we would join back in and start the next interval. But for whatever reason, they didn't start the second lap. They started the next interval at the end of the first lap. Kevin and I looked at each other and we knew this wasn't good. You see, for one, Coach Timmons was a Marine. And there was a schedule to practice and no excuse whatsoever for getting off that schedule. We watched our assistant coach, who was timing our workout, as he walked over to Coach Timmons. They had like a 15-second conversation, and Coach Timmons started walking straight for Kevin and I. When he got over to us, he said, guys, get your stuff and get out of my practice. Well, my friend Kevin, he just completely snapped. Maybe you've been in a situation where you know someone or you think that you know them, and all of a sudden something happens and you're just like, I don't know who this is. I don't know why you're acting like this. And that's how I found myself. Kevin just went crazy. He started yelling. He was screaming. He took both of his shoes off. He threw them up in the air. He was cursing. He said he was going to transfer to Kansas State, which is way worse than any curse words when you are at the University of Kansas track and field practice. But we finally got out of the far end of our practice facility and into our locker room. Kevin started pulling everything out of his locker. He's stuffing it in his bag. Says, I'll never run for Kansas again. I'm transferring out of here. No one disrespects me in that way. A few minutes later, the captain of our team came into the locker room and said, Coach Timmons said he wants to meet with you guys at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Kevin said, you bet, you tell that old man I want release from my scholarship. I'm out of here. I said, Kevin, just relax. Maybe when he finds out what happened, it won't be that big of a deal. He said, it's too late. You can't unring that bell. I already have been disrespected. Well, Kevin and I agreed to meet out in the parking lot of Allen Fieldhouse, which is where our track offices are. So we jump ahead to that next morning, and as Kevin comes walking into the parking lot, you thought we just got kicked out of practice like 15 seconds ago. And he's right back in there. I talked to my parents last night. They told me I can run for anyone in the United States. I should have never came here in the first place. I'm like, oh, great, Kevin. Let's just see what he has to say. So we get into Coach Timmons' office. He had one of them wooden desks, which is a gigantic desk. Seemed like he was like a mile away. There were these 2 little tiny chairs for these scared freshmen to sit down in. He wrote in this notepad for what seemed like an hour, but it was probably less than a minute before he closed it and slid it off to the side. He looked up at us and he said, guys, I want you to know how much I appreciate getting to be your coach. I thought, that's not what I thought he was going to hold it. He said, I want you to know how much I appreciate how hard you guys work. I looked down at the ground now and I'm feeling really bad about what we had done, and I didn't think that we had done anything bad. But he says another thing and another thing and another thing that has to do with appreciation. I finally look up and Coach Timmons has tears welling up in his eyes. Now I know you probably don't know Coach Timmons, but he is a legend of all legends. I'm sitting in an office where all the way around every inch are world record certificates, NCAA championship certificates, On the shelves are 15 NCAA championship trophies. Olympic memorabilia is all over his office from his athletes that have went to the Olympics and brought back things for him. But I finally started thinking, oh my gosh, when he's done with all this, my crazy teammate here is going to start yelling this Coach Timmons stuff. Oh man, I want out of my scholarship, I'm leaving. So I do this under the table, like, Kevin, don't do it, don't do it. I'm getting no response whatsoever. I actually take my foot and I start hitting his foot, like, Kevin. Finally, I just look straight over at him, and guess what? Kevin's crying too. This meeting isn't going anything like I thought it was going to go. I thought Coach Timmons was going to strike fear into us, and that fear would lead us to never make a mistake again. And now the fact is, I'm the only one in this meeting that's not crying. Coach Timmons gave us a couple minutes at the end of the meeting to explain what happened. He said, okay, I'll see you at practice at 1 o'clock. Get out of my office. Kevin and I walked out of the office. We got one step out the door, and we just looked at each other like, what in the world just happened in there? I wanted to go to practice right then and there. I didn't want to wait until 1 o'clock. I wanted to go so I could show Coach Timmons I would never, ever let him down again the rest of my life. I was hoping when I walked back to my dorm, I would see Coach Timmons because I'd carry him on my back wherever he wanted to go. Because when someone gives you the gift of appreciation like that, it changes your view of them forever. That meeting took place over 25 years ago, and I would still do anything on the face of the earth for Coach Timmons. I guarantee you, when you have the opportunity to give the gift of appreciation to someone, it will benefit them for the rest of their life. It will change how they view you. It is easy. It costs you nothing. You can do it 10 times a day. You can do it as many times as you want, and you won't be out anything.